Hi everyone, I'm Mandy Hubbard, Senior Developer Advocate at Architect. I'm here today to help you get started using Architect to deploy your applications locally and to the cloud. If you're not familiar with Architect, we are a tool built for developers, and our goal is not merely to increase developer velocity, but to reduce developer frustration. Imagine it's your first day on a new engineering team and you get your local dev environment running in a few minutes rather than several days. That's the goal of Architect, to make your life easier and to remove the "it works on my machine" phenomenon forever. If that sounds good to you, let's jump in and get started. All the steps I'm running today are going to be available in the Architect UI on the dashboard, which will guide you through all the steps you need to get started, or you can reference our documentation, which will also walk you through these steps I'm running today. Now, if you're following along at home, the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you've installed Node and NPM and that you have Docker installed and running. And then the next thing you're going to do is install the Architect CLI and use it to clone a starter project. So let's do that now. I'm going to jump over to the command line and do an npm install. And as this is installing, I'd like to show you the Architect starter project organization, Architect templates. Here you can find starter projects written in a number of different languages using a number of different frameworks. Now, rest assured that Architect is completely language agnostic, but we know that developers are not. You have preferences, and our aim is to deliver a learning experience using a language or framework that you're comfortable with. Now, you could simply clone one of these repositories directly using git clone, but I'm going to jump back over to my terminal and let Architect do it for me. So the next thing we're going to do after installing the CLI is run the Architect init command. This command is going to ask me for a name for my starter project. And then you'll see all the languages and frameworks available in the GitHub organization are displayed here in the drop-down list. So you can select the starter project you want to clone. I'm going to select the Go project. And this CLI command is going to clone that locally for you. And once that completes, you can see that it gives you the very next command you need to run in order to run this starter project locally. So I'm going to go ahead and run that now. What is happening is the Architect CLI is looking at the config file, the architect.yaml file, where all of the services that comprise this application or this Architect component are defined. The architect.yaml file is where you define services, you define how those services interact with one another, you define network information such as interfaces and ingress rules. You can define environment secrets and all sorts of other information that both a running application in production and a running application that is being used for local development might need. Once the application has completed its startup, it's going to automatically launch in a web browser. This is a very simple application used to rate movies, and I'm going to rate the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I'm not actually interested in horror movies, so I'm going to give that one a 1. So now we have an application that uses a backend API and displays the results of previous entries in the bottom of the form and allows us to enter new information. So we're running this application locally, and I'd now like to show you one of the main benefits of using Architect for local development. I'm going to hop over to VS Code and open this project, and I'm just going to change movies to pizza. Save that, and when I hop back over and refresh, you can see that the changes take effect immediately without restarting the application stack. This is going to speed up your development and allow you to iterate quickly without stopping and starting. So now we've run this application locally and we've seen how easy it is to make changes and have them reflected without restarting the application stack. Now we're ready to deploy to Architect's cloud. But before we can deploy, we need to do a couple of things. The first is we're going to register this component with Architect. This is similar to pushing an image to Docker Hub or any other container registry. This makes it available for Architect to deploy, and we're going to register it to a particular account. So I'm going to hop on over to the terminal and register this image, this Architect component with Architect. And once that has completed, you'll see at the bottom of the terminal, it indicates that the component was successfully registered. So now that the component has been registered, we're ready to take the next step, which is to create an environment on Architect's cloud. Now, an environment is kind of like a Kubernetes namespace. It is an independent virtual area on the cluster where your applications and only your applications are deployed. So let's go ahead and create a new environment. I'm going to call it example environment, and I'm going to select the account. You can create multiple accounts using the same Architect username, and in this case I've got a couple, but you'll normally have one when you're just getting started. Now that we have created our first environment, we are ready to deploy the application. I'm going to do so by running the architect deploy command. Here I have tagged, used the latest tag. This go demo comes from the architect.yaml file. That's the name given to this component in that file. I am specifying the account that I'd like to use as well as the environment. So this command is going to deploy the application to Architect's cloud, and it's going to ask me to review these changes. I'm going to apply those, and it's deploying now. Great, so the deployment has completed successfully, and you can see at the bottom of the terminal here that Architect has provided us with a URL where we can access this application running in the Architect cloud. I'm going to just copy this address and paste it in a web browser. And here we have the same application that we ran locally, now running in Architect's cloud. You can access it via the URL, which is comprised of the service name, the environment name, the account name, and Architect's custom domain name. So you can always anticipate what your URL is going to be for a given service. And that's it. We've cloned an Architect starter project, run it locally, and deployed it to the Architect cloud. And you can do this with any containerized application using Architect. So try one of our starter projects or try deploying your own containerized application. And if you have any questions, you can contact us via our website at architect.io, or you can find us on Twitter at architect_team. Thanks so much for watching.